Hello, my name is Lou Markos, and I'm a professor of English and scholar in residence at Houston Christian University, where I have taught for 34 years. As an apologist in the tradition of C.S. Lewis, it has always been my goal to bring together Athens and Jerusalem. That is, to take our Greco-Roman legacy and our Judeo-Christian legacy and bring them together. I believe firmly that as Christians, we can learn a great deal from the higher pagans of ancient Greece and Rome. Almost 20 years ago, I published a book with InterVarsity called From Achilles to Christ, Why Christians Should Read the Pagan Classics. I looked at the Iliad, the Odyssey, the Aeneid, and the Greek tragedies, and I saw in them foreshadowings of the greater truths that would come in the New Testament and Christ himself. 4 years ago, InterVarsity published another book with me called From Plato to Christ. And in that book, I focused only on Plato and showed how his thought and ideas exerted a tremendous influence on Christianity, and an influence that was mostly good. Well, 4 years later, I knew it was time to write From Aristotle to Christ. Although I am at heart a Platonist, I knew that I had to dig in and wrestle with Aristotle and his ideas that have also exerted a great, and I think mostly good, influence on Christianity. Now, at the center of that, in the center of my book, is Aristotle's Nicomachean Ethics, where he calls us to a life of virtue. And he shows us that virtue is not a feeling. Virtue is an activity. It's an action. And the more we do it, it becomes a habit. Courage is not feeling brave. Courage is a habit that even when we're at the post and the enemy is charging, we still stay at our post. I'm going to show that most of what Aristotle taught us about virtue is very much compatible with the Christian life. I will look as well, as I'm an English professor, at his poetics and the way he taught us to read and interpret tragedy, and also to read and interpret and use rhetoric. However, in addition to that, we will look at Aristotle, the logician, who taught us the difference between deduction and induction, who taught us how to use syllogism, who taught us that something can't be itself and the opposite of itself at the same time and the same way. And Aristotle's logic has been foundational to theology, to the way we interpret the Bible and put it into systems. I look as well at the influence that he had on the way we consider the world that we live in. Aristotle taught us the four causes. Everything has, yes, a material cause and an efficient cause. And in our modern materialistic age, we think that exhausts the causes of things. But Aristotle challenged us before Christianity came along that we also need to know the formal cause, what a thing is. And we also need to know its final cause. What is its end or its purpose? I want to invite you to join me as I wrestle with Aristotle and show the impact he had on people like Aquinas and Dante, but he also had a great deal of influence on Protestants as they tried to understand politics and the proper role of the state and what it means to have laws that guide your democracy or guide your aristocracy. And in this book, I've tried very hard to make Aristotle as accessible and understandable as possible. And I do show places where, yes, he may lead us astray, but I hope to convince you that in most cases, he led us on a good road. And even though Plato was more influential on theology, you will see that it was Aristotle who had the deeper understanding that we are not souls trapped in a body, as Plato often thought, but we are enfleshed souls, souls and bodies that are joined together in what Christians would call an incarnational unity. So again, I invite you to wrestle with the great Aristotle.